Hello there everybody, Sam Strains here, welcome back to the Railway and welcome back to another Hornby steam loco review. So recently I did a teardown video of my LNER Green D16 from Hornby, and that video got me to thinking I've actually got the LNER Black version of that loco as well, which I've had for a few months but haven't reviewed. So today I decided I would review this one. Now obviously I have reviewed one of these before, it was about a year ago, but obviously as I say that was the LNER Green one, and I think this one is beautiful enough really to warrant its own review. Now I might go as far as to say that this is probably one of the most perfect model locomotives out there on the market right now. That isn't necessarily because of the detail, because if you've seen my other review you'll know that the detail is just okay, it's pretty good, don't get me wrong, but it's not the detail that makes this shine, but really it's the quality, the performance, the character, but more than anything else the price. This one, as you can see here, there's a price tag on here that cost me £75. This was at a train fare though, so I actually managed to get him down a fiver I think, so I ended up paying £70 for this, but I believe you can get this same model from Rails of Sheffield for £75, and if you really want a bargain you can get, I think it's the BR Black one from Hatton's, which is a little bit less still, but yeah. These really are good models, and hopefully I'm going to be showing you just how good these are today. So let's get this started then. Let me get this lovely LNER Black number 8802 D16 locomotive, beautiful 440, out of its box, and let's take a look. And first of all, big shout out to Camille's Model Railway, who has been asking me to review this for a long time. And in fact, I reckon these D16s have a little bit of a cult following behind them, because there have actually been loads of people asking for me to review this LNER Black one. So yeah, very happy to do that. Anyway, if I show you the end of the box, you can see that the Hornby product code for this is R3521. And of course, it's an LNER Class D16/3, number 8802. Yes, and it's a DCC ready model, as you can see there also. And briefly, if I show you the back of the box, you can see that this was classified as a 2P, which makes sense. There is in fact a class 2P, which is also a 440, so that's fair enough. Then in the middle here, you can see that there's quite a lot of information on the beautiful D16, so if you want to pause and read that, feel free to, but I'll fill you in a little bit on them in a second. And then on the far end, as usual, you've got the sort of drawings that Hornby presumably did to help them to design this model, and these are dated 2014, so 4 years old now, although I think the model came out obviously quite a bit later than that, a couple of years ago really now. Anyway, let's get this one out then. So yes, the LNER Black version. There are quite a lot of different liveries available. You've already seen my LNER Green version, but there's also BR Black and a couple of other different variants which are really nice to see. But anyway, yeah, I think the LNER ones are my favourite, and this one really is a nice piece of kit. Okay, so yeah, block of ice style packaging, obviously can't really see her too great inside there, so I will get her out straight away. And this was brand new, by the way. £75 is about spot on, I would say. Rails of Sheffield, as I said, they have a similar kind of price for them, so if you're after one of these, take a look on there, and if they've still got some left, you might be able to pick one up. But anyway, here's the operating and maintenance instructions for the D16, and if I just open it up, yeah, it's the pretty box standard, really, Hornby manual, with all the points about lubrication, accessories, body removal, DCC fitting, yep, all of that good stuff, quite nicely drawn, but yep, as it always is, really. So let's take the logo out, and I can see the detail pack in the top there, quite a big one, so let's grab that first of all. Okay, the detail pack. So yeah, as you can see, quite a bit of painted detail going on inside here. You can see there's plenty of brake rigging. You've got presumably a spare, well not a spare, a front coupling for the loco. The tender normally has them coupled. And then you've got vacuum pipes here, which are separately painted. And there's a number of other interesting details inside there. So yes, quite a hefty detail pack really. And now then, let's get the loco out. Oops, sorry about the noise there. There we go, and it's very well packed. Just as a little side note, you can see that there's little cut-out bits of foamy, sort of, yeah, sticky foam stuff, which helps to protect it. And then you've also got this plastic inlay, which, yes, why not? It's the good stuff that you can play with. But yeah, that generally does a really good job. And as I say, there's not a mark on the loco, so it's obviously done its job pretty well. But if I lift this up so that you can see it, here it is, the absolutely gorgeous D16. Now, normally I would prefer the LNER Green 10 times more than I would the LNER Black of a model, but actually the LNER black on this model really is beautiful, isn't it? Absolutely fantastic. Now, a big thing that stands out is the weight of this model. Not so much the tender, but certainly the loco itself. And the reason for that, as I discovered, as I confirmed in my teardown video, is that the body of the D16 is made of die-cast. It is a metal body, which is extremely realistic, but it also means that it's got a lot of weight to it, so therefore good pulling power, and it also means that you get fantastic value for money for, well below £100. Really, really good it is. Weirdly, the running board itself appears to be made of plastic, but the bodywork isn't. The bodywork is die-cast. So there she is, absolutely gorgeous, as I'm sure you can tell, and I will show you her up close in just a second, but first of all, here's a little bit of information on them. So this class started life in 1900 when the first loco of the class, Claude Hamilton, was produced, and it was designed by James Holden, of course, for the GER. Over 120 of these locomotives were produced between 1900 and 1923, though with many variations along the way. The ultimate development being classified as the H88, which eventually became the D16s when they were reclassified to that by the LNER, and the other name for the D16 was of course the Super Claudes, the ultimate development. The class was very grand looking and featured a hidden cylinder layout, powered reversing gear, and an extremely spacious cab, which is definitely evident just by looking at the model. When the LNER owned the class after 1923, of course, the H88s were reclassified to D16 and were initially given the LNER green paint jobs, but obviously at some point they will have gone to LNER black, possibly during the Second World War. Sadly, all of the original locomotives were scrapped and none have survived into preservation, although some new builds are supposedly underway. So there she is then, 8802, absolutely fantastic. What a character this loco has got. I'm looking at her from the other side that I normally do today because I think this is her better side. You can see the reversing rod and the Westinghouse pump there. But before I get onto that, I did want to say a word or two really about the pricing. And the reason I want to say this is because I get a fair bit of criticism, not a lot, but a fair bit about my criticisms against certain manufacturers about the way they price their models. Now, a lot of people come to me with various arguments about, Chinese production costs and the fact that this is a niche market, so things aren't going to be cheap. But actually, this model is quite a nice foil to that argument because, as you can see, it's a relatively large locomotive. It's not the largest out there. There are, of course, much larger ones out there, but it's relatively intricate. It's relatively detailed. You can see the paintwork is fairly sophisticated, unlike some others. The Raven Q6 comes to mind, for example, which is another Hornby LNER locomotive of recent years. It's also got the die-cast metal, as I talked about as well. It's not just plastic. And also on top of that, the detail itself, the moulded detail and the separately fitted detail, is pretty much second to none. Now, there are many, many retailers which are selling this for £75 or thereabouts. It's not just Hatton's or Rails of Sheffield. Relatively universally, this model is sold for a good price. Obviously, the Hornby RRP is still relatively astronomical, well over £100, but I think I've said my piece on that in the past, so I'm not going to go on about that. But yeah, models like the Raven Q6, for example, are nearly always sold for much more money than this. And yes, it's a slightly larger model, but it's got much less painted detail. It's entirely made of plastic. There's no die-cast. I don't think there's any die-cast work going on with it. So yeah, the value for money on this model, basically, in my opinion, is absolutely superb. And as I say, I really do think that this proves that fantastic models, not only fantastic models, but quality models with genius design. I mean, you saw in my teardown video how well designed these are. But models like that can be sold for a decent price, and I think £75 for any tender locomotive, let alone this one, which is so good, is a steal. It really is a good price, and if Hornby could only do this more often, sell their models to retailers for a more reasonable price so that they can be passed on to customers for a really good, reasonable price. If they could do that more often, I think they would be out of trouble, to be honest. This is a fantastic, fantastic model. So, I'm going to stop bubbling about it then. I'm going to actually put my money where my mouth is and show you the detail on this. So, as I always do, let's start with the paintwork. As you can see, the banding on the boiler is second to none. It's beautifully done, and you just get a bit of a better texture with this because it is die-cast metal. The texture on the boiler itself is really, really impressive. I can't put my finger on why, but it's obviously got something to do with the fact that it is die-cast metal. The running board, as you can see, also has the red lining on it, and again, it's a little bit bemusing why the running board was not made of die-cast metal when the body was, because it's normally the other way around. If there's going to be die-cast, it's normally on the running board. But I guess they have to cut costs somewhere, and the loco is heavy and it is quality, so even though the running board isn't die-cast metal, it's not a huge complaint. On the side of the cab, cab, you've got the running number, of course, 8802, with yet more red lining around the cab and, of course, around the windows, which are glazed and lined as well, which is really, really lovely to see. The steps also have beautiful red lining on them, which, again, is a really, really nicely detailed touch. And you've got other small parts which are picked out with paintwork. You've got this little tap here, which has been picked out into a copper sort of gold colour. You've got the reversing rod here, which unfortunately I think is made of plastic, which again is a little bit of a shame. If that was made of metal, it would be more obvious what a good quality model this is. And also the Westinghouse pump, by the way, was painted on the LNER green version, but as per this livery it isn't painted, but nonetheless it is a really nicely detailed piece. Just hiding behind the steps as well, I've just spotted there's quite a lot of intricate pipework there, and given that it is pretty much hidden from view under normal circumstances, it's really impressive that that has been painted. And if we take a look at the buffer beam, you can see that the running number is also repeated on there. You've got the separately fitted coupling hook on there and really nice looking metal buffers, which I believe are sprung. Let's double check. Yes, as you can see, those are sprung. So that's really, really nice. Let's take a look at some of the separately fitted work then. So starting, as I usually do, with the top of the loco, you can see we've got the safety valves, which look like they're metal. Yes, I think that's true. Yeah, they look like they're metal to me. And then you've got the whistle behind there, which again is quite a nice, finely detailed die-cast piece, which is nice to see. And on top of the cab, you've got the open air intake there, but that is just a solid piece. That doesn't open or close or anything. But I always find that to be a gimmick anyway, so it's not a big drawback, I don't think. If we take a look at the smoke box, you can see you have got the separately fitted smoke box dart there, as well as a lamp iron up on top there. And speaking of lamp irons, there are also those fitted to the just above the buffer beam at the front of the running board there, which is nice. One major downfall of the model is the fact that there is no representation of the valve gear underneath the boiler, and there's quite a visible area. That is a little bit of a shame, but again, given the price of the model, it's not a major complaint. But it is worth noting that the similar B12, which is very similar to this in my opinion, except it's a 460 of course, very similar model in all aspects really. It's got also the die-cast body, remembering that, but that does have the representation of the valve gear underneath there, which is all painted up in red. That's something that this model is sadly lacking, and it is fairly obvious that that's missing, but as I say, that's probably one of the few major drawbacks of the model. Taking a look inside the cab then, you can see that the cab detail is pretty much exquisite. It's not the best cab out there. You can see there isn't any paintwork on the gauges themselves, but other than that, it really, really is a nicely detailed cab, and it really is just a joy to see that when she's running by. So that's the loco. As you can see, a lot of character to her, and in general, a lot of detail too. Really, really nicely done that. Okay, quick look at the tender then. As you can see, it's done in the same livery as you'd expect. It's got the beautiful LNER text on this side there, which has been really nicely applied. And quite noticeably, all of the underframe has been picked out with the red lining too, which is really, really nice to see. The coal in top is good and realistic as far as I'm concerned. I believe they are removable in these tenders, so if you really don't like it, as always, you can replace it if you like, but I don't think that's too bad, to be honest, and certainly for my purposes, that is absolutely fine. You've got what looks like another separately fitted lamp iron there sticking up at the back, so be careful of that and make sure you don't catch that. And around the back again, you've got more sprung buffers and more separately fitted handrails and lamp irons around the back there. So yes, a beautiful, beautiful model. Let's take her down onto the layout then and see just how nicely she runs, and these are impressive runners, I think. Okay, let's get to it. So there she is then, my beautiful LNER Black D16 down onto the track. Now unfortunately, one of this model's weakest areas is the performance, and as much as I like this model, and I do, I absolutely love it, that's something I've got to admit. Now the first flaw in her performance is the slow speed. She's really not a very good slow runner, and I think I know why it is, because when you run her at a medium speed on the controller, at 50% speed, she flies around, right, which suggests to me that there's a little bit of an issue with the gear ratios in there, where the speed isn't being stepped down enough from the motor to the wheels, so they're going quite fast. And therefore it makes sense that at those very low voltages there just isn't enough torque to make the loco run smoothly, and therefore she judders forwards, and you're going to see that when I run her slowly. So yeah, I think that is actually a design flaw. The second issue, which I think is less of a design flaw and it's not so much of a complaint, is the pulling power. Now if you look here, you can see she's only going to be pulling 4 coaches, which obviously is a little bit light for one of these, because in real life they were really quite powerful. And she did actually admittedly pull 5 while I was testing her just now, but up on Gordon's Hill she was really struggling. It was a lot of wheel slip, and generally I don't like to see my locos wheel slip because it's just not good for them. Now Hornby could have combated this in a couple of ways. The first way would have been to have added a traction tyre, but I really don't like traction tyres. I think they're cheap and nasty, so on that count I'm glad they didn't do it. The second thing Hornby could have done would have been to add some more weight. So for example, they could have made the running board out of die-cast as well as just the body. But again, I'm glad they didn't do that, because if they had have done, it would have driven the price right up. And actually, I really like the price the way it is. So even though she's not a great puller, I think it's a compromise that Hornby made, which in my opinion was necessary and reasonable. And yes, she's not a great puller. Those coaches are about her limits, but you know, it's not too bad. And actually, we're going to be running the green version in just a second, and she is going to be pulling 5 coaches, because when you run anti-clockwise around my layout, you've now got this side of the room uphill, which as you can see is straight, and for some reason it's not quite as steep either, so they seem to manage a lot better. But yeah, a couple of performance issues, nothing too serious, but yeah, I think really the only thing that could have been improved is the gear ratios. But let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to just ease her up on the controller, and the slow speed isn't terrible, it's just not great. So as you can see, that's when she kicks in. It's not particularly slow, and as you can see, it's not particularly smooth. It's very juddery, and there we go. She's cut out. But once you get her to the higher speeds, she's very nice and smooth. But what I'll do is I'll back her up near the coaches, and then I'll set her to come forwards, and I'll put the controller to halfway, and you'll see what I mean about the speed. So I'll set her to forwards, and here we go, straight up to half speed. It's really fast. And so I think just a little bit better gearing would have improved the slow speed performance and also made her run at a more realistic speed. But I have noticed when running her, you've got to sort of run them more slowly on the controller than you normally would. It's not a huge complaint, but as I say, it does affect the slow speed performance. Okay, here we go then. Let's back her up to the coaches and show you her pulling them. See, that kind of speed's all right. Well, just about. There we go. I think you could definitely get a flavour of that wheel slip there. So yeah, not too bad. With 4 coaches she's okay, but you're going to want a super flat layout if you want to do 5 or maybe 6. My layout isn't super flat, so 4 is really the comfortable limit, but as I say, the green Claude Hamilton is going to be doing 5 for you, because it's a little bit easier anti-clockwise. But there she goes towards Gordon's Hill. There she goes, and as promised then, on the inside, in the middle line, we have the LNER green Claude Hamilton with her slightly larger train. And as you can see, I don't know if you can see the controller there, yes you can. They're set to around, I don't know, 1/3 of the maximum speed, and at that speed they're going at probably what would be the equivalent of half speed on any other loco. So yeah, certainly a little bit of a gear ratio issue there, but nothing too serious. And here comes yet another LNER black locomotive from Hornby over recent years. This is the Raven Q6, and just for a bit of a change, she's got a small goods train. There you go. So see how many other LNER locos, or ex-LNER locos, you can spot on the layout, and I'll put a poll later on for you to guess how many there were. And if you fancy a challenge, see if you can name them all too. So there goes Claude Hamilton. Quite nice and steady there. As you can see, she's just about managing. I do notice occasionally she starts wheel slipping, but it's nothing too serious, so I think she's just about comfortable with 5. There's the Q6 with just a mixed rake really of box vans and things. Quite nice for a change. Oh, who was that? Here we are then, top of Gordon's Hill. Yeah, you can clearly see the wheel slip there with 4 coaches. And I did clean the tracks just now as a precautionary measure too. And there goes the Q6, spoiling the shot again. Seems to happen quite a bit, that. But they do make fantastic express passenger locomotives, these do. I mean, they go at a decent speed, and that is one advantage to them going pretty fast. And they're not terrible pullers, you know, for a 440, 4 coaches with no traction tyre. Isn't too bad, let's face it. And let me know in the comments which is your favourite. You've got LNER green here, Claude Hamilton. Still got to be my favourite, but not by a lot. But let me know which is your favourite of the 2 and why. So here are my ratings then for the very lovely Hornby D16 in LNER Black. First of all, detail 4 out of 5. Yes, the detail was absolutely fantastic. Although as you could hopefully see when I showed you her up close, there are 1 or 2 areas which could have been improved, so I've given it 4 out of 5 there. Power, again, it feels a little bit harsh, but I can't give it any more than a 3 out of 5 because she can only manage 4 coaches. And obviously in real life, they were a lot more powerful than that, but it's quite a dilemma because I'm glad Hornby didn't use a traction tyre, and I'm glad that Hornby didn't use, any more die-cast on the model than they did, because it would have either made it cheap and nasty or made it cost an awful lot more, respectively. So, I don't really know how they could have improved it, but, it is what it is. It is only a 3 out of 5 from me, unfortunately. And again, slow speed, 3 out of 5. I feel bad for giving it a low score there, but frankly, it doesn't do that well at a slow speed. Now, the mechanism inside, as we know, is absolutely incredibly high quality, but I think it's just to do with the gearing. There's not enough torque there to get her going at a nice slow speed, because she is so fast, even at a moderate speed. So I think that's the issue there, but it's not terrible, 3 out of 5. Quality though, as I say, 5 out of 5, I can't fault it. You've got the die-cast, you've got the high quality mechanism, and it all comes in for a reasonable price. And that brings us on to value then. Now, I'm a bit gutted here, because obviously, as I say, the price I paid for this, and the price that Rails of Sheffield and Hatton's offer for this, is absolutely fantastic at £75. But really, unfortunately, a month or 2 ago, I made the decision to take the manufacturer's price for these models and rate those, because they are consistent, and obviously the other retailers sort of chop and change their prices over time from place to place as well. So the only way to consistently do that is to choose the RRP, the manufacturer's price. So unfortunately, the Hornby price of £140.99 is astronomical. And yes, I understand they've got to price their models so that the other retailers are able to undercut them and stay in business, but at almost double the price, this goes far beyond that, and I don't really see why it's necessary, if not just to make a fast buck on those who don't know about Rails of Sheffield and Hatton's and whatnot. I'm not saying that's what it is, but I'm saying that's what it looks like. So overall then, 7.33 out of 10. Again, I love this model and I feel bad not to give it a fantastic score, but I mustn't let my feelings get in the way of the ratings. That is, I think, accurate, and it's certainly more accurate than it was last year. I think this new rating system certainly shows the flaws in models a lot more than the old one did. Anyway, into the ranking then, 13th, just above Gordon and below the Fairburn tank. In my opinion, it deserves better than that. I don't know what you guys think, but I do feel that I've been honest and accurate there. Anyway, let's get back to the running session. There she goes, no problem down Gordon's Hill, of course. And here comes the LNER Black version, which is very, very smart. I mean, I say I prefer the green one, but you've got to admit the black is gorgeous, especially with the red lining. It beats BR Black. Well, some BR Blacks that don't have the lining, obviously some of them do. But yeah, really, really like that. Okay folks, well I hope you enjoyed that review. I certainly did. I'm sorry that the ratings seemed a little bit harsh there. I do admit that, but I also think, they were fair. Even though I like the loco, I've got to be honest, haven't I? But let me know what you thought anyway, and of course there's the poll right now to vote, well not vote, but to give your answer as to how many other LNER locos you spotted out on the layout today. No prizes or anything, but you can have a pat on the back if you get it right. But anyway, thanks again for watching folks, and I will see you very soon. Cheers everybody.